Okay, welcome to our latest LinkedIn live session. My name's Chris Wixon. I'm the co-founder of ReelFlow, which, if you're not aware, is an interactive video product for websites. And once or twice a month this year, we're running one of these LinkedIn live sessions where we invite a guest on and we dig into a particular topic, normally around three themes. And these are kind of the three themes we're building ReelFlow. So number one is the rise and influence of video, particularly in B2B. We're all consuming more short form video content than ever before. Second is this changing B2B landscape we're operating in, how audiences research, how they make decisions, how they navigate the web, the demographics. There's a lot of things that are changing pretty fast there. And third is the evolving role of websites today. I keep using this phrase, websites are having a bit of an identity crisis. Are we building for the bots and the LLMs? Are we building for the humans that land on our website? So all of the discussions will kind of unpack those topics. And for today's session, I'm delighted to be joined by John Monk, who's the head of performance at ASP, who are the event website specialists. That tees me nicely up for today's topic, where we're going to be diving into the world of event websites. So think trade shows, conferences, exhibitions, that kind of thing. And before I intro John, just a quick note, two things. One, we pre-recorded this just a couple of days ahead of this going live out on LinkedIn, but John and I will both be with you live. So if you do have any questions, please add those into the comments below and we'll be able to tune in and answer those. And secondly, depending on when you're watching this, we are exhibiting at Confex next week. So if there's any questions, anything you want to pick up with John or myself, both ASP and ReelFlow, we will be at International Confex next Wednesday and Thursday out at the XL. Should be a great event. So hopefully see you there. So John, welcome. Why don't we start with a quick intro? Do you want to tell us a bit more about yourself and ASP, and then we can get into it?
Hi, Chris. Well, thanks very much for the invite. I'm really excited to talk today about ReelFlow and AI and websites and much of what you've spoken about there. So my name is John Monk, head of performance at ASP. If you don't know ASP, we have been doing event websites since 1997. So we know a lot about websites and we certainly know a lot about events. I joined ASP 4 years ago with respect to helping people's websites perform better within search. Obviously, historically, this has been very much been Google dominated, but certainly now in 2025, 2026, it's now very much moving towards AI, ChatGPT, et cetera, But also at the same time, it's really exciting to be chatting with Chris, because whilst everything is becoming a lot more automated, the whole concept of person to person and having, really portraying your website and your business and your personality over towards the visitor is more important than ever, because I think people are quite suspicious about, or they're reserved about websites where they don't know much about you. So jumping ahead here, but been involved with SEO since 2012. I've worked on a range of industries and companies, and in the last 4 years have specialized in events.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, lots of really interesting topics for us to get into there today. I think, as you alluded to there, one of the reasons we're building ReelFlow is, I think it's fair to say, trust is at an all-time low between buyers and vendors today, and that could be audiences and events, could be buyers and tech products and services. And AI has hugely accelerated, I guess, that sort of erosion in trust, particularly on the web. So I'm going to dig more into that there. Let's start a kind of top-down view. I think historically, I guess a lot of event websites have really been digital brochures, sort of static brochures that are ultimately there as a place for visitors to go and register. But you and I both know that that is leaving a lot of opportunity on the table if that is the view. So it'd be great to just get your take a bit more on that.
100%. So, like I say, I came into events about 4 years ago and immediately saw, coming from an SEO point of view, having to optimize a website, that so many organizers were leaving so much opportunity on the table. In that, like you say, I've always thought that event organizers many of them have treated their websites a bit like the event, in that there's a nice big build up to the event in which content's added and lots of marketing goes towards the website. The event happens, people have used it to purchase tickets or register, etc. Once the event happens, traffic falls off a cliff at the end. lots of content is then deleted, and the website often kind of goes into stasis for the rest of the year. And from an SEO point of view, that's really bad. It leaves so much opportunity. I'm used to working with businesses who treat their website as often this kind of their primary digital asset for, throughout the year, in which they'll be writing blog posts, they'll be adding stuff to that site, and every single year it's growing in size. You'll have more pages, more content being added to the site, and at the same time, more people will be going to it as well. So certainly looking at an events website and just seeing this kind of that ramp up, drop down, and then the same thing just repeats year on year. And especially with all the content that they delete, they leave so much opportunity on the table because they really could be having traffic all year round rather than just in that lead up to the event. So yes, they 100%, the ones I've seen treat it as a brochure, but they have so much opportunity where they could actually have it as a year round traffic driver.
Do you think that's a bit of a legacy thing, I guess, maybe from the hangover from the 90s and noughties, where the event, as you say, that is the date in the calendar, those 2 or 3 days when the show takes place. And then over time, it was like, well, we need a place for people to register. And then the website's never really, I would say, probably kept up with, however, any other kind of B2B product or service, which, as you say, the website is often the primary first party digital presence that a business has. But in events, I guess it almost feels like slightly the other way around often.
I think 100%. And I think as certainly as I've worked through events longer, I've fully come to understand why, because you have a massive financial investment, which has a complete cut-off date. And often the budgets are kind of set in terms of all of the marketing to hit, and then get registrations and sponsors and exhibitors for when the event happens. And you really cannot be risking anything up to there. And there's no doubt that SEO in terms of PR has had a sketchy past. There've been plenty of operators who haven't operated well. There's been mixed results that people have experienced with SEO across various industries. And within events itself, I think as much as anything, it's the risk of possibly diverting some of that, some of the standards that people use, which will be email, PPC, and maybe a bit of social media, where they kind of knew it worked last year. So let's just carve out that same amount of budget, put that towards next year and just rinse and repeat. It's not broken, so let's not change anything. But what they don't realize is that there's so much more opportunity that if you do start to add to your website, you can actually reduce your PPC costs. And also you don't get that huge drop off, as I mentioned before, in traffic, which means that throughout the year, rather than your email list and database gradually dwindling down until more activity maybe in a year's time, it can actually you can keep topping it up through the year. So it certainly is molded around, I think, just a traditional way of working, and the fact that you have just such an important thing happening, which is the event, and you can't risk not getting the registrations and the sponsors, etc.
Well, and we touched on it there. I think every event has one of the challenges with event websites is trying to cater for the wide range of different audiences, and in a very seasonal perspective as well. So we think you've got in the months leading up to the show, the visitor promotion campaign, but almost once the event's done, the organizer is back into the mode of, we've got to go attract sponsors and exhibitors for next year's show. We've also got to cater for speakers, exhibitors who have booked their booth and are now kind of there for the next part of that, the press maybe. So really trying to cater for like all these different audiences. And as you alluded to, this kind of all year round place that the website has got a role to play, if done well, can really, I think, have a much longer term positive knock-on effect, as you alluded to, of reducing those costs and reliance on PPC, reliance on going out and having to buy lots of third-party data in spreadsheets that you can chuck onto the email mailing list. So really, there's lots of benefits of turning the website into that kind of all year round presence for the modern audience.
Yeah, yeah. One little tip, actually, just what I'll say there, what people, so speakers always, especially, you know, a lot of our clients' events obviously have conference and therefore speakers. And the classic is every year is to delete last year's speakers and then wait for the new year's speakers to turn up. Now, a lot of people will go to an event simply to see a speaker because they want to see that person. They have authority. They know their industry, and people, especially keynotes, obviously. Now, speaker pages can be real hidden gold in terms of driving, because people are looking for those people all year round, and they may not even know about your event, but they might find that person being the bio page for your event. So one top little tip is don't delete your speakers. And even if they spoke 4 years ago, they could be in a library called past speakers, and they'll can find their way to your event and come and see your new speakers.
Well, so that's a really great tip, and I think a lot of organisers they sort of make that mistake of, you know, the week after the show's done, it's almost press the reset button and start
Yeah.
again. So that's a really good tip. Are there any other, like, I guess, areas you commonly see that lead to that either leakage of traffic or yeah, missed opportunities that organisers, some kind of quick wins they could be taking advantage of?
I would. So one thing that no one really does is, or you'll see them because you'll see the websites that I've worked on because you'll see the difference. But in other industries, let's say you go onto an e-commerce site, you go onto Amazon, it's quite normal that if you want to buy some shoes, you'll go into the category and then you'll see subcategories, and all of the different products will be categorized in a logical format. So you can buy, you know, you can find your boys' shoes or girls' shoes or, you know, whatever it is you're looking for. With events, it's so regularly people don't categorize why people are coming to an event. So the event might be about AI, let's say, but there's many subsections to AI, and you might only be interested in machine learning, or you might be interested in video avatars, or you might be interested in robotics, which are subsections of AI. So therefore, um, people may not realize that they might think your AI event is too broad because I'm more interested in a specific topic. And also for the machines, for ChatGPT and for Google, etc., they don't know specifically what you cover either because you haven't told them. So start thinking about your event in terms of what are the topics you cover. First, your overriding one, and then any subtopics within there. And that will help both people and the machines.
Yeah, that sounds good. That, and it links nicely to one of the common ways in which organisers are using ReelFlow on event websites. I touched upon that range of audiences. Homepage, yeah, homepages are always the hardest page for any company because your homepage, you're trying to cater for anybody and everybody wherever they may be in their journey, and obviously you just don't know when people land on your website. It could be the very first time they've ever heard of you and no idea who you are, what they do. They could be returning for the 50th time. So one of the ways people use, our customers have used ReelFlow effectively on the homepage is to almost quite quickly help people get away from the homepage.
Yep.
So in an event setting, it might be quite quickly understanding through a video, are you a new visitor learning about the event for the very first time? Are you a returning visitor looking to find out what's new this year, why you should come back? Are you an exhibitor, a sponsor? Let's say kind of get people off the homepage quickly, get them that next layer down into a site where it's much more relevant. You can tailor that content much more to their needs rather than sort of hoping they scroll and find the tab that you want them to get to. And there's plenty of good examples of that now live on the various event websites we're using ReelFlow. Let's dig into the hot topic of SEO, AEO, GEO. Have you got a preferred phrase that the term you're using? Because
you know, I mean, all we need is more in it. Yeah, all we need is more letters, isn't it? Really.
yeah.
I often call it just AI SEO, so everyone knows SEO. So I just add AI on the top. But answer engine optimization, you know, that's one that seems to be starting to gain a bit more traction. The other one's generative engine optimization, which just gets massively confused with geolocation. So I'm not
Yeah.
particularly keen on that. But in the events industry, AEO is not great because you've got the
No,
accumulation
exactly.
of event organisers, so you can't
Yeah.
win really.
They had AEO a long time before ChatGPT was launched as well.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. But you, when I saw you speak at Event Tech Live, and I think, and you've definitely add some more color to this, but ultimately the principles of SEO apply here, right? It's about designing websites well. It's about providing relevant, good content and context for whether it's the bot or the visitor. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that and what you see?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you think about ChatGPT, I mean, in many ways, it's just an extension of what you were doing on Google anyway, in that you went into the search bar and just typed something in to try and find something that you were looking for. I mean, it's now fortunate that you can now be a lot more specific, rather than just saying AI events, which you may have done before in Google. Now it's like, I'm looking for an AI event, um, around late summer, autumn, and which, we potentially have, these particular types of exhibitors. There might be this kind of conferences that are going on, these types of speakers. I've got particular interested in this particular topic. So by the end of it, you could have written 100 words, in terms of what you're actually looking for. And then if you start to think about, well, okay, the machine now has to kind of return you an answer. Where does it get that information? So, I mean, it's quite simple, really. It's either going to be your website, or it's going to crawl around the internet and just try and pull things together. And it's always worth bearing in mind that machines are built to please. So therefore, if it can't find the information, it does what's called hallucinate, and it may make stuff up. And obviously, if you're an organizer, the last thing you want is to have a machine making up stuff about your event. There have been cases where, not specifically about events, but in other circumstances, it will have, within articles, etc. It's literally made up quotes. It's literally made up people. In terms of quotes, it's made up references, which are literally false. Literally false names that don't exist, companies that don't exist. So it could do that about your event if you don't give it the information that it's looking for. So in many ways, it's quite simple. Like I said before about the topics, if you do have a whole conference section around robotics, let's say, well, you kind of need to now start arranging the website so it quite simply explains that. So you have a nice page about robotics. Here's some of the speakers we might have. Here's some of the topics we might be talking about. And if you don't have that information yet, you just refer back to what you spoke about last year.
Hmm.
And in many ways, it kind of segues quite nicely into the concept of the video, Chris, because like if you were just a person and someone said to you, um, you kind of need, I think, similar information on both. I mean, if we were just talking and you were the event and I was saying to you, what sort of stuff do you have about robotics? You'd probably just say, oh yeah, we've got these speakers, and that's happening at this time. We've got these exhibitors. We've also got a networking event that's going on in the evening, where you can meet. And also there's opportunities for kind of startups to do pitches and stuff like that. Basically, I can imagine that's the sort of stuff that you'd have on the video.
Hmm.
And that's also the sort of stuff that I want to write down on the page. And it's great that and hopefully when people start using ReelFlow and putting the videos together, they'll think, well, hold on a second. Shouldn't we actually put this on the page as well? Because it's actually really useful, relevant information. And in many ways, it's quite simple when
Hmm.
but when everyone's busy and you don't know what to, it's easy to forget it. But in many ways, that's all you do.
Yeah. And with AI now, the ability to generate both the topics and the content with some curating, as you say. Yeah, we cannot be wholly reliant on these things, but the ability to generate both the topics and the content and easily publish those on your site. And we use a similar principle when we're thinking about the video content, as you alluded to. Even though the end result is a talking head, short form video, the principle still applies. One of the things we've done at ReelFlow is working with AI to think about all of the types of questions that somebody might ask, be it in Google or ChatGPT or whichever AI tool they're using, that we would ultimately want to feature in. So
Yep.
not not purely about ReelFlow, the product and how does it work, but topics like, in our case, it might be our chatbot is underperforming, so I'd like to explore something different. Or I'm thinking about bringing video to my website. How could I do it creatively? Questions like that, where we would want the models to be surfacing ReelFlow. So we've come up with lots of types of questions we think people might ask, and the same could easily be applied for event topics. But as you alluded to, crucially, where are the bots getting that information from? Well, they're coming to our websites to get them. And then I think the bit I really stress to people is all of this is incredibly important, but it can't be at the expense of the human experience on your site. Yeah, ultimately, the reason you do all that is to get the click, get that human being to go over to your website, particularly with events where ultimately that there's a call to action at the end of it. It's register, buy your ticket, attend. So it's really important you kind of don't just do one and forget the other. I think that, and I do think in 2025, with the rush towards AEO, it was almost at the expense of the visitor experience, and people were seeing website performance continue to decline.
Can I just say a point actually about video and written content? It's just while you're talking there. Obviously, it's a lot easier now to create written content. We're certainly finding that there's a lot of people who don't know how to kind of constrain the AI. So therefore, we've all seen that ChatGPT classic written stuff that's too flowery, too Americanized, too many dashes in it, and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So we are sometimes finding now that as people are getting more content on a website, which in many ways is becoming less useful. So because people don't necessarily how to use ChatGPT properly. So in many ways also that adds even more value to the in-person video to really provide that connection, because they look at the text and see something which is a load of ChatGPT stuff, which isn't necessarily as good.
Yeah, completely. I mean, we're all seeing it every day now, aren't we? Just as the ability to create the content has become so easy. You and I could sit here right now and generate tens of pages of content, that the kind of AI slop that is flooding our social feeds. I was looking at inbound to ReelFlow this morning. I'm on their website and I'm pretty sure it's some kind of spammy, the website looks pretty good, but you haven't got to look too far beyond the surface to be like, hang on, I don't think there's anything behind this.
No.
And there's a lot of that going on right now, isn't there? So that's a nice segue into, again, one of the kind of reasons I think ReelFlow has been a great fit for event websites is that, firstly, events are all about the human experience, bringing people together in a real life scenario. And I think one of the reasons hopefully the events industry is having I don't know if resurgence is the right term, but where people are still craving those in-person connections, probably more than ever with what's going on with AI. And I think a big part of the ReelFlow proposition is, can we help a business to bring that sort of authentic, trust building, very human, conversational type video content, like we know works so well on social? Can we help someone bring that very easily to their existing event website to complement the design and structure of the site, and ultimately give the visitor, that buyer, that decision maker, a more engaging, interactive experience, what they get to see and hear from real people behind those event brands, but the speakers, those kind of things. That's a real big part of getting this balance right between the AI side and the real human experience.
You were telling me before the call that there's a couple of your clients doing particularly well since they've installed ReelFlow.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, whilst we don't exclusively just work with event marketing teams and event organizers, as we were talking about before we jumped on, it is just a really great fit for the product, given the human nature of events. And we typically see the short-term impact is bounce rate goes down. So if you're not familiar with bounce rate, that is people who basically land on your website, whichever page, and bounce immediately, close the tab, finish their session. So bounce rate goes down, which is a good thing. Time on site, depth of visit goes up. People are staying there for longer. They're viewing more pages. They're getting deeper into your site. And those are all, those kind of engagement metrics are all leading indicators towards conversion, which is obviously the ultimate aim of the game. And conversion can obviously mean many things. It could be somebody going all the way through and buying their ticket. It could be someone downloading an exhibitor prospectus. It could be booking in a call. Yeah, lots of different things that go into that. But yeah, go on.
I was just going to
Tell
say
me more.
actually, because certainly one of the challenges we've had when talking to organisers about SEO, because it's still relatively new in this industry, is about data. And you was just mentioning there about bounce rate and stuff. And certainly one of the things we've learned is a lot of our clients don't know what they don't know. And
Mm-hmm.
so as a result, we've started doing Google Analytics dashboards for clients. And
Mm-hmm.
the main purpose being it's all on one page. It's all really easy to understand. It just gives the main metrics. And I implore anyone that's going to use ReelFlow to know their data, because at the end of the day, ReelFlow, I mean, certainly from everything I've heard, works amazingly well, but you won't know it works well unless you know your data, because it is the data that which will tell you. So, for example, one of the key things that I'm always looking at on our dashboards um, isn't number of users or sessions or even number of conversions, because the problem is it's very difficult to compare apples with apples. But the key metric that we put on is conversion rate. So therefore, you know that an email campaign versus, let's say, a PPC campaign, you may only get half the number of visitors from the email campaign, but the conversion rate's 3 times the amount of the pay-per-click campaign. So therefore, what we're either doing right on the email campaign we can model, or what's going wrong with the pay-per-click campaign, because the conversion rate is so different. And
Mm-hmm.
when you put on ReelFlow, I'd certainly recommend that there's that close, you know, you make sure you get conversion rate actually added. So therefore, on your Google Analytics, so when it's added, you can really see the positive impact it's going to have, because that really does paint the picture as, you know, in addition to bounce rate and time on site and everything else, as to how well it really works.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds great, John. I think we often encourage you. We show customers within their ReelFlow dashboard, they can see the metrics that we can see on our
Yep.
side. So,
Yep.
number of people who interact with the ReelFlow player, how many videos they watch, how long for, what flows they sort of what paths they follow through the flows, through the interactive aspects. But it always needs to be paired up with what the customer, the website can see on their side. So, as you say, having sight of those metrics and knowing what's important. And I just think around conversion and coming back to this notion of like these websites are all year round. You know, it's, whilst we'd all love to think websites operate like this lovely linear process of someone comes onto the site and they do a bit of reading and then they click the buttons we want them to and they register. We know the reality is not like that. Like
Yep.
the website all year round, I could be on an event website that I'm reading about on LinkedIn today, and the event might be in 12 months' time. That might just be one of multiple touch points along my journey to ultimately purchasing a ticket. And combined with the fact, as we all know, one of the challenges organisers struggle with is how late people leave it to register. As much as we'd love people to register earlier for our events, just this trend I think we're seeing, not
Yep.
just in events, but you know, people leaving it later and later. So making sure we're kind of catering for that journey throughout
Mm.
their own research, I think is really important, and being able to sort of have sight of that and track it.
Just on the year-round thing, one of the things I try to encourage clients is to you have to you have to deserve the visitor. You have to deserve the traffic. And if Google or ChatGPT is going to send it to you, why? And
Mm-hmm.
my thing is always, well, you have to have information and stuff on the website that people want to engage with and people want to read. So, you know, that might be um, we have clients who you know, they'll record their sessions, for example, from last year and put them up as videos. We also recommend putting those down and getting them transcribed and turn them into articles, so therefore
Mm-hmm.
could be read by ChatGPT and things. But also at the same time, um, you know, where I guess ReelFlow could work well is where early on you have explainers as to why you should actually register now. You know, what you're going to get. You know, maybe there are webinars that are going on throughout the year that, you know, that you wouldn't necessarily have picked up by looking at the website,
Mm-hmm.
or reasons to register as a sponsor or an exhibitor now, rather than wait kind of like 3-6 months down the line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I often think conversion in B2B in particular is a real lagging indicator of, if someone goes on your site today and makes a purchase or books a demo or buys a ticket, that is probably because you've done a good job over the last 12 months
Yeah.
of getting them to that point when they're actually ready to put their hand up.
Yeah.
So conversion is that real sort of lagging indicator of you've done a good
Of
job.
we-
I often think of ReelFlow as like ultimately a buyer enablement product, a buyer experience product. Like
Yeah.
give your visitors a good experience, an engaging experience, help them help themselves
Yeah.
on their journey. And then if you do that well, you get the rewards sort of down the
100%.
line. Well, John, maybe to end, given we've got Confex coming up next week, I want, and obviously you guys will be present there. Are you speaking again at Confex?
Yep. So we've got a stand there. So if you want to come and have a chat about AI, and if your website's getting found, whether you've got an ASP website or not, that doesn't matter. Happy to chat to anyone about that. Also doing a talk about AI and PPC with the SEO agent, the PPC agency MCM on Thursday. So if you want to find out what's working today in the PPC world and AI world, check us out. We'll be talking at Confex as well.
Sounds good. Yeah, and we'll also be there as ReelFlow. So stop by if you want to to learn more about what we're up to. If you're between now and Confex, if you go and register for the Confex event on Confex's website, you will see ReelFlow in action down in the bottom right hand corner. So check that out. Gina in the Confex team's done a great job. It's a handful of videos to help guide people through, so you can see ReelFlow in practice. And I hope this has been a productive session, and people have got some good takeaways, and say get along to Confex next week to unpack more of these and speak to John and myself. And thank you all for participating today.
Thanks very much, and thanks for the invite, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.